if you made a triangle and had the 3 points represent SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy, it would be easy to describe two of these dynamics. They're essentially best friends. However, there's one dynamic that's a bit tougher to figure out. Are they friends? Friends of friends? Frenemies? Well, I watched as many episodes across the 3 shows to figure this out. Let's say you believe they are friends, which does sound like a fair assessment on paper. Just the sheer amount of episodes they've spent together on paper should make them friends, right? Not really. If we're counting things that Sandy did for Patrick specifically, or vice versa, the list is smaller than you think. There's a few brief moments scattered between episodes such as Procrastination or I Had an Accident, where they hang out away from SpongeBob, but these moments are quite rare. We're looking for big moments, where a lot of that episode is Sandy or Patrick being nice to the other. And I could think of one. Patrick would reach out to Sandy, being frustrated with not being able to create a fun, original game within the Season 9 episode, Patrick the Game. This would give him the final kick to create his own board game, and Sandy would even defend Patrick's efforts without him knowing.
Every game that Patrick has invented is more pointless and boring than the last.
This time he did research.
We haven't started and I'm already bored.
Well, I'm excited.
She would also defend Patrick's game against Squidward while playing it several times. Patrick would return the favor in helping out Sandy later on in the show. Although Sandy would not have Patrick as her first choice, she'd enlist his help within the episode Dome Alone to figure out what Plankton is up to, since she's not able to leave her tree dome within this episode due to not just breaking her helmet, but her backup helmet.
Hello!
Howdy, Patrick. I'm trying to peep Plankton's plans. Want to help out?
Sure! I'll be over as soon as I finish my sandwich.
Surprisingly, there are more nice moments between them outside of the main show. Within Camp Coral, you have Hot Pearl Tato, where Sandy was playing chess with Patrick, and surprisingly, Patrick won multiple times in a row.
Hi guys, guess who came for a visit?
Sorry, SpongeBob. We're busy playing chess, and somehow Patrick has won 37 games in a row.
In the second season of Camp Coral, Sandy would be very considerate in helping Patrick take care of his star child all throughout the episode. However, as far as major moments not wholly connected to SpongeBob somehow, those seem to be the best cases. Oh, and also, oddly enough, we'd see in Goofy Scoopers that she autographed the back of Patrick's head, and I wouldn't know why. A better and safer argument would be to assume that they are mutuals or friends of friends, with SpongeBob being the connecting tissue between them. Almost any time they are hanging out together, SpongeBob is there, which makes sense. They don't have the most in common and have different dynamics with the sponge, which makes them a bit incompatible when you take out SpongeBob. Even in the examples I showed earlier, most of them were related to Patrick entering Sandy's world of either science or other smart activities. So why is it safer and a lot more popular to consider them mutuals instead of direct friends? Let's see how many moments have to do with them teaming up to help their best friend, SpongeBob. Within Valentine's Day, Sandy not only brought SpongeBob's present for Patrick, but fought off Scallops and patched it up just in time. While it wasn't her gift, she went out of her way to make sure it was handled as properly as she could. Within Nature Pants, their goals were the same: convince SpongeBob to come back home. Patrick and her attempted to organize a picnic to convince him. However, it did not work.
There he is, Patrick. Say you're live.
Why, thank you, Sandy. I would love one. I sure wish he'd come home. Take a bite. I can't do it!
Within Whatever Happened to SpongeBob, you know, the special that everyone loves, Patrick and Sandy would work together to find and rescue him. When SpongeBob's home was rotting in Home Sweet Rubble, Patrick would call Sandy and they'd exchange a casual conversation, but ultimately, they'd spend that episode trying to help their best friend.
Howdy, Cheeks Residence.
Sandy, don't hang up!
What do you want?
Oh, nothing. I'm just hanging out with the sponge. How about you?
Oh, you know, a little this, a little that, a little vacuuming.
That sounds like fun. I wish I was over there. SpongeBob's house is boring.
Within SpongeBob's Bad Habit, Patrick would call Sandy to help with their friend's nail-biting problem, although their efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. They both tried to stay up to make sure that SpongeBob overcame his nail-biting problem, which is a solid friend move though. Although not a great thing, Patrick and Sandy also bonded in a big party when celebrating National No SpongeBob Day within Gone. Within Party Pooper Pants and SpongeBob Meets the Strangler, they're both at a party for SpongeBob, but they're not interacting all that much. They would all later bond together in a Batman game within the episode Ditchin'. there are plenty of times when Sandy would not just hang with SpongeBob, but Patrick within Camp Coral, like within the episode Pat's a Little Sinker, where Patrick wouldn't know how to swim, so SpongeBob and Sandy would join him at the bottom of the lake after failed attempts in teaching him how to swim. There's also a few moments where Sandy would trust SpongeBob and thus Patrick to help her with something, which shows that she doesn't entirely dislike the guy. She trusted Patrick with taking care of her pets while she was out of town with SpongeBob within Wormy, which wasn't the best idea, but at least she had trust in him not tearing down her home. In fact, later on, within House Sitting for Sandy, he'd proved to be a giant menace in that episode.
I promise not to touch anything.
Okay, now let's check the list to see what's next. Patrick! Patrick, no! You promised me you weren't gonna touch anything.
I wasn't touching anything.
Then what were you just doing to Sandy's collection of rare fragile artifacts?
Tasting it.
There would be many moments where Sandy would act as the mediator or big sister to both SpongeBob and Patrick. Within To Save a Squirrel, she wasn't that enthused when Patrick or SpongeBob needed her help to fend off a grasshopper and believed that they didn't stand a chance in the wild, although she did ultimately help them with that. She'd also try to help with conflict mediation within Yours, Mine, and Mine. However, given that they entered her tree dome with no water, that didn't end so well. She'd also help SpongeBob within Hide and Then What Happens by allowing him to use her submarine to look for Patrick in their game of hide and seek. She would console SpongeBob within the episode You Don't Know Sponge, when SpongeBob realizes that Patrick knows less about him than he thought.
You don't need to know everything about your best friend. That's what keeps the friendship interesting.
Really?
Maybe you and Patrick just need some time apart.
Within everyone's favorite episode, Face Freeze, she would attempt to help SpongeBob and Patrick with a massage, but her efforts were wasted, and she kind of made the situation worse. She would help though within Whirly Brains, confronting the angry old timer so that Patrick and SpongeBob can get their brains back.
Now you listen to me, you twisted coot. You can't steal somebody's brain just because it flies into your yard. That's brain napping, and it looks like I'll be the one calling the police.
Ooh, I love it when Sandy gets aggressive.
Sandy also helps SpongeBob and Patrick within the episode Sports, with a Z, after Squidward becomes the rule keeper for what he interprets the sports to be. Patrick, alongside SpongeBob, would surprise Sandy with a trip to the museum within the season 14 episode Hysterical History. Although she'd be skeptical of their retelling of Bikini Bottom's history, she'd be excited nonetheless and even save Patrick within this episode. So with all of these episodes, it seems pretty cut and dry that they are friends of friends at least, right? Wrong. There's actually one more case I'd like to show you before you make your final choice. Because not only are there tons of episodes to solidify the case, but you may be surprised at some of the patterns that aren't as talked about. The third and final case is that you can argue that they tolerate each other at best and at worst, don't really like each other at all. Revisiting I Had an Accident, I spoke about that episode earlier, while it was shown that Patrick and Sandy hang out without SpongeBob, it did show a few moments where Sandy was annoyed with Patrick's presence.
I've simply decided I am never leaving my house again.
That's crazy talk.
That's not crazy talk. This is crazy talk. Sorry.
Within Suds, they held opposite viewpoints of how to take care of a sick SpongeBob to the point of arguing. Patrick wanted to protect SpongeBob from what he perceived to be a scary situation, but Sandy knew it was the best thing for SpongeBob.
Now look what you've done, Patrick.
What I've done? Everything was fine until you showed up.
You should be arrested for impersonating a doctor.
Hey, I'm a good doctor. Right, SpongeBob?
Huh?
SpongeBob?
Sandy would completely destroy Patrick in one of my favorite scenes of season 1 within Texas because he, alongside SpongeBob in fairness, mocked Sandy for being from Texas. In a very famous scene, when things nearly break down into chaos within Band Geeks, Patrick, God bless his soul, would kick Sandy, and Sandy would respond by doing the unthinkable.
Whoever's the owner of the white sedan, you left your lights on.
Sandy and Patrick would be on opposite ends during the season 12 episode, The Nitwitting, where Sandy would state that she's a part of an organization that cleans up the mess that empty-headed folk cause, with their license showing a symbol that's clearly implied to be Patrick. There's also a lot of episodes where Patrick either bluntly states his indifference to Sandy or flat out forgets that she exists. Patrick would assist SpongeBob in making an invention to impress Sandy's bosses within Chimps Ahoy, but at the same time forgot exactly why they were doing it, which leads me to believe that he only did it because he wanted to hang out with SpongeBob, not necessarily for Sandy. Speaking of, within the Flea in Her Dome, SpongeBob would be distraught that Sandy is away, and Patrick would initially join him, but we'd learn that he doesn't remember who Sandy is exactly.
After Sandy gets back, we're gonna let her know how much we miss her.
Is Sandy the one I call Mom?
Regardless, he does help with arranging a welcome home party, and later on in this episode, when the flea that Sandy brought back to Bikini Bottom turns the safe tree dome into a place of terror, Patrick does get on Sandy's case for doing so, despite not helping out much in this episode at all. When SpongeBob was worried about Sandy going off to a rodeo within the season 7 episode Rodeo Days, Patrick was largely indifferent, if not completely uninterested in helping.
Oh, this is terrible. We can't let Sandy go all alone. It's too dangerous up there. Right, Patrick?
I'm indifferent.
How could we live with ourselves if Sandy got hurt and we went there to help? Sandy needs us. You understand? Patrick?
And my last example for this part of the case is that Patrick, yet again, forgets who Sandy is at the end of Squirrel Jelly.
I'm gonna destroy you!
That's our Sandy.
Yeah. Which one's Sandy?
There's a few rare times where Sandy would be reckless or dismissive of Patrick within the show. There was SpongeBob You're Fired, where Sandy would have Patrick eating free slop specifically to test how much freeloaders will eat if it's free. The reason I have this in the frenemy category is specifically because when SpongeBob, who was unemployed at the time in this episode, tried to eat this, she stopped him, but was completely okay with Patrick eating it, even though it was probably radioactive and not that great for you if she's warning SpongeBob, which should tell you how much she cares about Patrick. While she didn't intend to necessarily aid Plankton in attempting to steal the formula within Salsa and Basilicus, she'd claimed that Mr. Krabs would have to be as dumb as Patrick to get outsmarted by him, which is an example of Sandy speaking poorly of Patrick behind his back. In contrast, there are many episodes where Patrick would be generally reckless or flat out insulting towards Sandy, and she tolerates very little of it, and these are some of the handpicked worst moments between the two. While SpongeBob wanted to let Sandy be within Survival of the Idiots, it was Patrick who ultimately okayed the idea of bothering Sandy during hibernation, and for a reason that didn't age well.
If y'all are watching this, that means I'm asleep for the winter, so do not disturb. That means you, SpongeBob.
We better put these on.
Never mind, Pat. Sandy said not to come in. Let's amscray.
When are you gonna learn, SpongeBob? No means yes.
Yeah, Patrick, you can't really say that anymore. Patrick was one of the people who treated Sandy awfully within Squirrel Jokes, particularly speaking to her in a very condescending way.
Hello, Sandy. Me, Patrick. Do you understand? Squirrels.
Patrick was also amongst SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs in making fun of Sandy all throughout Pressure. Now, to be fair to them, Sandy was also making fun of sea creatures, but it is another episode where they were at odds. There was also the disrespectful scene within the season 6 episode No Nose Nose, where Patrick with his new nose sprayed the air freshener on Sandy and told her to
Take a bath, Fleabag.
You'd imagine if Patrick got smart, like he did within Patrick Smart Pants, that he'd get along with Sandy better. And then the opposite happened. Despite hitting it off well, after Patrick helped Sandy with an equation, he began to belittle her for needing help with it in the first place, which led to Sandy kicking him out of her home. He'd also just flat out insult her within Bubble Trouble completely out of nowhere.
Why don't you just breathe water like a smart person? Guess you're just too dumb.
It should be noted that when SpongeBob destroys Sandy's air supply, Patrick and SpongeBob do help Sandy stay alive and save her air supply. For now anyway. Within the season 9 episode Squirrel Record, she'd construct the largest house of cards and Patrick would knock it down. Granted, it was not a malice, but carelessness, but it definitely didn't help her in her pursuit of world records. Patrick wouldn't make things better within the episode Sandy's Nutmare, for a few reasons. For one, as SpongeBob and Sandy fight over the last Krabby Patty, Sandy would win the fight, but Patrick would eat it regardless. When Sandy learns that her tree is dying, Patrick would do 2 things wrong here.
Oh, my tree is dying!
Good, we can use the wood.
Patrick, stop! I can save it! With science!
Okay.
When giving a tour guide of Sandy's home, he'd be responsible for flooding it within No Pictures Please, and she'd be aware that it was him. And as the second to last example here that I have, Patrick would annoy Sandy with his yodeling within the episode In the Mood to Feud.
The grass is green and the trees are tall.
And I'll stop yodeling for just $1.
Now there's one more episode I wish to cover to make my case, and I'd like to hear your verdict in the comment section after. Within a season 15 episode, Sandy would be disgusted with Patrick eating his own flaky skin. Now this episode is called A Fish Called Sandy, and the reason I'm singling this episode out is because while this moment was minor in that episode, it is one of the best examples of a modern SpongeBob episode bringing back the feel of old SpongeBob, and I covered it recently. It's incredible, and you should check out that video right here.